Welcome to the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Munoz, CEO of the experience agency D-Flash. Each week, I bring on a different business leader who's doing some game-changing work. This is a part of a series called Podcast Row, where I'm interviewing dynamic, amazing women who are changing the game in a whole plethora of industries. And this episode, I am super excited to have Bernadette Joy, who's a money enthusiast, who'll be telling us how to save our money, be smart with it, and pay off our debt. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Bernadette.
Hello.
You're so joyful because your last name is Joy.
My name is literally Joy, yes.
So that's where it's coming from. Super psyched to have you on the show.
Thank you.
As we were discussing, I asked the same question first off the bat from everybody, and I'm always fascinated to see where it goes.
Yes.
And I'm sure yours will be no different. So, Bernadette, what was your first job?
I have two. Can I say two?
Already breaking the rules.
I'm already breaking the rules, yes.
It's okay. For you, all right.
Yes, thank you. So the first job, my very, very first job that I actually got paid money to do was to work in my Catholic church rectory, where I know the word rectory is already a hot mess, right? So let's, that aside, I was 13 years old, and all we had to do was sit in the lobby and greet people.
They paid you for that?
They paid me $4 an hour.
1, child labor laws. 2,
yes,
below minimum wage.
Yes.
3, really? In a church?
So yes.
Catholic, well, as someone who went to Catholic school from kindergarten through high school, I know the hustle.
Yes. So that was my first job. However, it was wonderful because I basically just sat there to do my homework and got paid $4 an hour. So that set very unrealistic expectations of my actual career, where I would have to do work to get paid. And so
that's a bad way to start. Way to start.
Yeah. So that was my first job. My first real job was working in financial services in human resources in New York City in 2008, and thinking that I was going to help people love their jobs. Instead, I was telling them that they didn't have any. So plot twist there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you just picked like the worst possible time to be in financial HR in American history since 1929.
Literally, yes.
There was a recession happening, and Lehman Brothers created, and everybody else lost their job. Oh, yeah. You were having a good old time, weren't you?
Unbeknownst to me.
like, I just want a job.
I just want a job, and I just want to help other people get jobs. And that was the complete opposite, which was very interesting in that I really had to switch gears pretty quickly. And as a 22-year-old was flying around to other offices around the country and telling people who had jobs for 20 years that they didn't have a job anymore. And I will always remember one day I was in Columbus, Ohio, and this guy looked me straight in the face and he said, "I think I've been working at this company longer than you've been alive. Why do you have a job and I don't?" And I said, can't answer that question for you, but I can tell you about your health benefits, and went home and drank a bunch of wine.
And could you not kill me?
And can I leave here alive? And realize that, I need to do something different, but I didn't know when or how or what that was going to be.
Wow. Okay. I will say 70 episodes in, that is the most unique first job story.
That was my goal. It's true, though.
Because damn.
Right?
That's traumatizing. All right. So you realize flying around the world and firing people is not really your jam.
No.
So what do you do next?
So why I talk about that particular role is that without realizing it and thinking back on it now, it made me think that while my parents are from a very old school Asian generation that said you should go work for one company and they will take care of you and they will give you a pension and all of the stuff, that I learned in my first year out of school that I cannot rely on my employer to take care of me financially for the rest of my life. And so I moved on from there to other HR types of roles, but I moved into tech startups, which was really fun. It was the opposite. While everyone else was just, collapsing, tech startups were really growing. And so I actually got to do some really cool stuff about building companies. And that's when I got the entrepreneurship bug, when I realized that my CEO was coming to me for advice on marketing and for running our call center and stuff like that. And I said, wait, can I do what he's doing?
Clearly.
Except he's like a millionaire and I'm not.
Like, I pay my rent.
Yes. And I decided that I wanted to do that, but I didn't have enough confidence to go do that on my own. And I did what a lot of other 20-year-olds do, is go back to school and get a graduate degree. So I went to go get that good old MBA and spent 2 years traveling around the world as part of this MBA program. So I got to go to places like South Africa and China and Buenos Aires, Argentina, and learn about entrepreneurship in different countries. And all of that to say was that I realized that there was a lot of stuff going on in other places. As crazy as the political situation is in the US, there's some crazy stuff going on abroad also.
Like, I always say there's never grass is greener. It's just grass.
It's just, I love that, right?
It's just grass.
Literally just grass. And made me realize if these people, for example, in Buenos Aires, I met all these entrepreneurs who were starting up these companies and their money itself inflated or deflated on a daily basis. Like an apple could cost $2 one day and could cost $20 the next day. And that made me think, wow, if they can do that in that kind of environment, then I have no excuse to start my own business. And so I left the HR world after I went to my MBA and started my first business, which was a company called Dressed. And it was actually like a local dress rent the runway.
Wow,
like a dress rental business, because I thought I was like, oh, I'm cool and I want to do fashion and, you know, screw corporate life and all that stuff. And that process made me get really serious about my finances because unbeknownst to me was that I also took out $70,000 in student loan debt in order to get this wonderful MBA. And I was like, I can't start a business with $70,000 of student loan debt. And oh, by the way, I also bought not one house, but 2 houses because I thought that was the cool thing to do when everyone was like flipping houses and making money off of that.
Because you were watching House Hunters and HGTV.
Oh my God, because I was from New York City. And then all these, you know, people were like, hi, I sharpen pencils for a living and I'm going to get a 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom house for, you know, $200,000 in the South. And I had moved to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, where it's like cheap as hell to do that. So you're like, yeah, easy.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, who needs one house? Let me get 2 houses because that's the price of one house in New York City, right? So I went from no debt to $300,000 of debt and realizing that I knew what career I wanted to do, be my own boss, but I didn't feel that I was financially ready to do that. And then that's what led me to my debt-free journey, and that's what I do now.
Okay, so you've got this. So you're sitting there in North Carolina, and you're like, I need to start this new business.
Yes.
But there's this $300,000 debt hanging over my head.
Yep.
So what's the step that you took to begin to essentially get rid of that debt-free? I make that debt-free life.
Yeah, I cried.
Helpful. As one does. Fetal position on the floor.
On the floor.
And house number 1 or house number 2 or both?
House number 2.
Got it. Cool.
Let's get real specific. I realized how much debt I took out. I had this feeling well up and I cried, was on my floor crying about it, and then realized I'm not going to cry about this for the next 10 years of my life, which is what the bank said I should do, is, you know, take 10 years to pay off this student loan. I said, I'm not going to take 10 years to do this. I'm going to figure out how to pay this off in 2 years. And the first thing I did was, after I wiped off all the tears and fixed my face, is Google how to pay off student loans. And that is a thing that I think is very interesting, is a lot of people assume that I'm super knowledgeable about finance because I came from the financial industry, because my family is a bunch of accountants.
You're Asian.
I'm Asian. I should be really good at math. And no, I didn't have any of those things.
Nope.
All smoke and mirrors. And so I had to teach myself about finances. And that just started out with anything that was free and available online, like podcasts like this. See what I did there?
That's good plug. So, all right. So you Google how to do this, and then what do you do? Because, like, literally, $300,000. As someone who still has student loan debt, shoot me. How did you do this?
Yeah. So that is where the math part came in, for sure. I sat down with my husband. Shout out to AJ. We've been married for 8 years, and I I shouldn't have been shocked, but I was, because honestly, I don't know that I would have done the same thing. But I told him about the student loans. Neither of us realized how much I had taken out, and we'd been married for a couple years by then. Yeah. This is like the blind leading the freaking blind, right?
Got it.
So I was like, I think I really screwed up. I didn't say screw up, I said other words, but I think I messed up and I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. And he basically said, you're not going to have to do this alone. We are married. What's yours is mine and mine is yours. So we will figure this out together. And that was the first step in realizing, and I don't know if it's the Asian in me, the woman in me, or whatever. Like, I've been told all this time, like, I have to do things on my own. I have to be able to solve these things on my own. And he was willing to go in on it with me for the sake of both our futures and also for his sanity. So, so we sat down and we're like, okay, $72,000. If we do the math, we put our Asian heads together. He is also Asian and an engineer at that. And so we did 72 divided by, if we want to do it in 2 years, it's $36,000 a year. That's $3,000 a month. That's $750 a week. That's about $100-ish per day. What can we do every day to either make $100 or save $100? And that's how I started. I was just like, I can't think about 2 years from now. I can't think about 10 years from now. I just need to think about getting through the next month of what can I do to make a dent in this. And so every day I was like, all right, let me sell some stuff. Let me pursue an extra client. At the time when I was doing dress, like, let me get 3 more dress rentals than I normally do, and I will put that all towards my debt. And any extra money that we made or that we saved, I immediately put towards the debt. I didn't care if it was $5. I didn't care if it was $1,000 or whatever it was. Anytime I had extra money, instead of like, oh, I'll just put it in the bank and save it, or, theoretically, pay off my debt, I actually went into the system and made that debt
So
payment.
even if it was a $5 payment, you went on to Nelnet or what have you,
Yes.
Great Lakes, and just was like,
Great Lakes, yes.
oh,
Oh my God, you're not kidding, yes.
So you would just put in $5 payment
Towards the principal, not towards the interest, yes.
towards your principal.
Yes.
And you were able to specify there was a principal, not the interest.
Correct, because I'm not paying them more money that they don't need.
Got it. I got you.
Yes. So, and it was little things every day. For example, everyone talks about coffee and how it's like the death of everyone's finances or whatever. I don't drink coffee because, again, I'm Asian. I drink bubble tea.
Bubble tea.
So I would be at the bubble tea shop and I'd be like, do I really need this bubble tea? And then I would go into my Great Lakes app on my phone and pay $5 of what I would pay towards bubble tea and pay it towards my debt instead. And I was like, I already spent my money for my bubble tea, can't get it. And I would walk out, which probably looked really stupid to people
But you
around.
gotta do what you gotta do.
But I did what I had to do and it worked. Within the first couple of months, we paid off like $30,000 of debt because we were doing anything that we could. And it was more than $100 every day. It turned out that $100 wasn't that bad to do. And so we were finding ways to, for example, I did a garage sale, which, Charlotte, North Carolina, people love garage sales and, buying other people's stuff. And I took everything in our garage that we had not touched in years and just threw it out onto my driveway. And in 4 hours, we made $400. And I put that immediately towards my debt the same day. And so stuff like that, getting really creative about how to make extra money, even if, I still had a day job or whatever it was what got us through those first couple of months. And I started looking at the math and saying, I think that we can do this in less than a year if we really, really try really hard at this. 2 years would have been great. A year would be even better.
Yeah, totally.
And I graduated in April of 2016, and the $70,000 was paid off by November of the same year because we just went crazy, to be honest.
Wow.
Just went crazy.
And so you pay off all $72,000, and then you're like, now what?
Yep.
I gotta tell everybody else how to do this too.
Yeah. No. So I was posting all of this on my Instagram. I had little Post-its on my refrigerator that had the debt amount. So that's something that I always tell people to do is make that thing real. Don't hide it away in your computer. Like I had to look
You
at
just
that.
see it every morning.
Yes. And I love food. So I look at my refrigerator. I go to my refrigerator like 100 times a day, right? So I had to look at that number every day. And so it was actually motivating for me to, even if I put that $5 towards the debt, that I would change the Post-it out
Ah, nice.
and update it. And so I was posting my Post-it updates Actually, I should say sticky notes because I'm not sponsored by Post-it. So let's say sticky notes. And I would look at, I would post these sticky notes on my Instagram. And what I didn't realize was that all of these people who I thought were killing it, whose Instagram feeds were like, look at us, vacationing in Greece, and look at me in my new, BMW, were DMing me and saying, how are you doing this? I am drowning in debt also. And that made me realize like there's a whole conversation that is not being had. And a bunch of us are just walking around pretending like everything is okay when inside we're not. And if we would just talk about this more, we would not only feel terrible, not feel so terrible about our situations, but we would actually share information that would help everybody out. And so that's how that started with what I'm doing now.
Fantastic. And so now you're a money enthusiast, which is the first time I've ever heard that term. I mean, as someone who loves money, I'm clearly enthusiastic about it.
Yes, I think we all are.
And if you're not, what's wrong with you? But like, how have you turned this into a business?
Yes. So I had that dress business for 3 years. And during that process, I realized that I loved talking about these kinds of topics. And I was starting to get asked to be on local news and radio shows. And then I was getting asked to do speaking engagements and stuff around this. And then it turns out I was making more money doing that than my quote unquote day job of my dress business. And so this year I decided that this was going to be my full-time gig, and I made the really hard choice of closing my dress business in order to do this full time, which was the hardest thing I've probably ever had to do, and decided that, in order to do this, that I'm going to, it took some time for me to figure out what was that going to be. Like, am I going to be a financial coach, which the word coach just makes me like not feel great.
You get you hives, I see.
Yeah. And I was thinking, am I a speaker, or, how am I going to disseminate this information? And I realized that the best way that I've been able to do this thus far was through media, which was my, TV things, my videos that I've created, and then my social media presence. And so that is what I'm focused on. And this year, I'm really excited because I never considered myself a creative because I've been in financial services. I have an MBA. Like, I don't think I have that gene. But I am really excited for this project that I'm doing this year, which is a documentary that's going to follow 100 women. So I'm going to recruit 100 women from all over who are willing to pay $10,000 of debt each in 2020, and collectively will eliminate $1 million of debt from all of our lives. And the hope is that along the way, what people will realize that, again, it's not about the math. It's not about, if you invest this much that you'll be a billionaire 20 years from now. It's following the lives of everyday, regular people who are changing their habits and changing how they think about money and how they think about their lives, really.
And so you're going to get these folks essentially pick everyday tasks to sort of bring down that $10,000 debt.
Yes.
In 2020.
And I think why this is really important to me is that I've spent the last 3 years sharing my personal story, and I recognize that my story is not everyone else's story, right? I've gotten pushback, and I've seen it. I made the mistake of reading comments
Never read the girl.
I know. I'm such
Don't
a
read.
noob. I don't know. So we had a really great news article that came out in one of the national publications, and I made the mistake of reading the comments, but it actually was a good thing for me because the things that people said in it, which were not very nice, but were things like, oh, well, if I had a husband, then I would be debt-free too. Or if I were making X amount of money, then I would be debt-free too. Or if I was living in the South and not in New York City, I would be debt-free too. Or you don't have kids, which is the biggest thing that I hear. You don't have kids, and that's why you're debt-free. And so the point of the documentary is I am 100% confident that I will find people who are nothing like me and will still be able to accomplish the same thing, because at the end of the day, it's really about doing what works for you and your family and your finances, and being really strategic about how you spend your time and your money. And I've already had cases of people who are not in Charlotte, who have kids, who are single, all sorts of stories, who do not make the same kind of money and have still paid off huge amounts of debt, but people don't hear their stories as much because they're not obnoxious like me on social media.
No, I mean, well, that was going to be one of my questions, because it's going to be that, Well, if you live somewhere the cost of living is 1/10 of what it is here in New York, and you're married, and you don't have kids, like that's you're already in a certain echelon, and so it's cool to hear that you're going to go after try and find women who are not like you at all, but the only common thread is debt. Mm-hmm. And so, have you found your 100?
That's why I'm here, is because I want to recruit
And why
people.
100?
Math. I literally did the math of like $1 million. Let me reverse engineer this.
It's 100
So
women.
I thought about it, right? There are 3 ways I could do easy math, right? I could find one woman who has $1 million of debt and have her pay it off, and I would accomplish this $1 million. $1 million just seemed like a good number.
Yeah, it's a good number.
So I was like, one person, $1 million of debt, that doesn't seem very like interesting to me. And the people that I have met that have had $1 million of debt is like a whole other
Different echelon of people.
it's a completely different thing that I just can't do anything about, right? So then I thought, okay, on the other side of the spectrum, I can find 1 million people and they each pay off $1 of debt, and that would also equally accomplish this $1 million, but that seems unreasonable and also not impactful to their lives. Like $1 of debt doesn't do anything for them. So I was like, what's a good in between? And just kept moving the scale, and it was like 100 people, $10,000 of debt. That means that each person would have to pay about $1,000 a month with some room for error in the course of the year. And that to me felt right. And I felt like if I asked any normal question, would $10,000 make a difference to you? Most people have said yes.
Of course. I mean, I think that's the thing I think is so important. But I also think it's really cool to see that people will be able to follow their journey along, because just like how people saw you, and you were just sort of sharing it because like this is what I'm going to do, and then people automatically were like, hey, like how are you doing this? Because I, DM into the comments, like what is? It's interesting. I think there's always this sort of push and pull about sharing your stuff on social media, where it's like, do you share your weight loss journey? Do you share your financial journey? Do you share your infertility journey? Like, and for everyone where you're oversharing, there's going to be the person who's like, I really need someone to talk, at least be honest about this, because I don't have anywhere else to go. So
yes.
I think it's awesome that you're going to go and try and do this, because debt's such a huge problem, especially student loan debt, which is the devil.
It's the worst. And when my parents talk about, and I think, my parents say, you should buy a house, you should have this big wedding, you should do all this stuff. They're talking about this from a generation that didn't deal with the kind of student loan debt that our generation is facing now. And so all of these old mentalities of what the American dream is and what you should be doing has not taken into consideration that people are coming straight out of the gate who went to college, like already in the hole. And so that is a very passionate topic for me, and especially because that's where it started for me as a journey. But I also think that, again, it goes back to there are so many people that are dealing with all sorts of financial issues. But when you look at the root of it, it's not the finances are the problem. It's what everyone else is telling us we should be doing and thinking that that's true. And I tell people all the time, the reason that I got into so much debt is because I did not want people to think that I sucked. If you really boil down to it, I was like, let me go get this MBA so people think that I'm smart. Let me get these houses so people think that I'm stable and that I know what the heck I'm doing. But really, at the end of the day, I got into debt because I cared so much about what everyone else thought about my life that I was willing to put myself in the hole for it. And that's what I talk about with people. Is a lot of people assume that when I go and talk and do these conferences that I'm going to, put up a chart and show you what your 401k can look like 10 years from now. But what I talk about is how do you have a conversation with your friends when you can't go out for an expensive dinner with them? How do you talk to your parents, which I just had to do, about, having proper estate planning so that if God forbid something happens, that, what their assets should look like will go to the people that they want to go to. Those are the conversations no one taught us about. And there's still a lot of great things online that you can learn. But I also found a lot of that content is super dry and boring and really serious. And I seem to have a knack for making it a little bit more lighthearted and not so kill me.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, 'cause it's heavy. Look, money is heavy. I mean, there was an article recently about how women don't talk about their salaries amongst each other, but like dudes do it all the time.
Yes.
And so it was the fact that it was in the New York Times and it was actually saying like this is the only way we get to figure this stuff out is if we actually talk about it. So I think it's super timely in 2020 for us to be like, listen, this is what the story is, this is what we're doing, and so that we can figure out how to live a more fuller, happier life and not trying to keep up with the Joneses because everyone thinks we have to do that.
Yes.
So, question for you. When your friends are like, we want to go to Nobu.
Shout out to Nobu.
So how does that conversation go? Like, what are some good tips? 'Cause I'm sure there are people out there listening who are like, maybe I live in New York, so I picked Nobu. But like, whatever, like you want to pick a nice restaurant, and it just is not within the plan for you.
Yes. So I tried to be sneaky about it before, where if friends wanted to go somewhere expensive, and I'm like, oh, I've been there already, like trying to play up the whole FOMO thing, but actually to my favor, I'm like, oh, I've been there before. Like, the food isn't that great there anymore. Like, why don't we just stay at home and cook dinner, and we'll try to make one of the Nobu dishes on our own. And people did not realize that I was like tricking them on that. But it turned out that was actually more fun than going out to dinner. We didn't have to wait in line or wait for our table. We didn't have to wait for the waiter to come, all of that stuff. And so I started doing that with pretty much everything in my life, where, for example, if people are, wanting to go out to, in Charlotte, it's a lot of breweries and drinking and stuff like that. But we would instead, for example, invite our friends over and we would cook dinner and we would do board game nights. And I used to think that was so lame. I was thinking, oh my gosh, people are going to think we're so lame that we don't ever go out and we just play board games. But I would post it on social media and people would message me and be like, how come you don't invite me to your board game nights? They look really fun. And I was like, oh, so really? We just have FOMO about everything. So we might as well just have FOMO about stuff that doesn't cost us so much money. So I would say if you have friends who, first of all, there's two things. I would say if you have friends who always want to do expensive stuff and that's the only way you have fun, I would really consider looking at your getting some new friends,
new friends.
To be honest. And for the friends that I am really close with and we have just fun doing anything, we find ways to have fun and hang out together without spending a ton of money, and I'm very transparent about it with them now. So, for example, I have a really good friend that, we don't go out for drinks, we go do yoga together. And I have another, when I came into New York, again, super Asian, kind of embarrassing, but we were like, we don't want to pay for karaoke because it can get expensive. Hashtag Asian problems. And so I said, let's just do karaoke at my friend's house because you can just look up karaoke videos on YouTube and sing karaoke. And we were on this text message and my friend was like, oh, should I bring my karaoke mic? And my other friend was like, I'll bring two. And my other friend was like, I'll bring mine also. I'm like, do we all have our own karaoke mics? What the?
Why do y'all have karaoke mics? Damn. Okay, so then I must ask, what is your song?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so depending on the crowd, it's my Asian friends, I sing Korean pop music.
K-pop.
Am I Korean? No. But do I understand Korean? Also no.
But it doesn't matter.
But that's what the words are for on karaoke, and you just sing it. So there is a song in Korean pop music that I like to sing. If it's like the everyday crowd, Tiffany. Oh my gosh, what is the name of the? I don't want to sing. I'm so embarrassed to sing.
You're so gonna sing it.
No. I think we're alone now.
Ah, okay. Mine is Living on a Prayer and Proud Mary.
See?
But I can't sing to save my life. Like, stereotypes are kind of funny because, like, people assume because I'm a black woman, I can sing. I cannot carry a tune across the street. But I can dance.
Okay.
So that, that's kind of how it has to be.
Yeah. So karaoke, free.
Can't go wrong.
And you learn so much about people from their songs.
Well, yeah. So I think it's really, so you what you basically do is you sort of reframe the experiences to make them more cost effective.
Correct.
I think that's pretty much a great way of doing it.
Thanks for summarizing that whole conversation in like 10 seconds.
My day job is I'm a marketer, so so question for you. Now that you've kind of become this awesome money enthusiast, you've got this awesome social following, you've got these 100 women, what's next? So once you got the 100 women, are you going to sort of be like their cheerleader? I know we're not going to use coach because that incites hives, but what are you going to be doing to kind of get them on it?
Yep. So as people join the journey, there's a bunch of tools and resources that I've created. So video, education that I've done, and then doing a combination of one-on-one, I don't want to say coaching. Again, I have to think of another word. One-on-one conversations, advising. Sure, let's go with that. But then when I say financial advising, they think it's something else. So I have to, anyway, I'm going to talk to people about their one-on-one experiences and help them put a game plan together. But then the majority of the time, it's going to be the community responding to each other. Because again, I don't want people to think that I'm the be-all, end-all resource for all of these things. And I've gotten so many great tips and tricks from other people in the hashtag. This is a literal hashtag debt-free community if you want to follow it. And want everyone else to support each other. So the goal is that this 100 women are going to know that the 100 women in this group are going to be equally, gung-ho about this journey and are going to help each other out as well. So it's going to be a combination of me teaching, but hopefully everybody teaching each other.
Awesome. Okay, so you're helping all these awesome women and find their debt-free lives. What does Bernadette do for her self-care? So is that yoga? Is that treating yourself to a brewery night? Or is it just going for a run in Charlotte? Like, what's the thing that you sort of do? Because, like, this stuff is still heavy, and I'm sure you get messages where you're like, whoa, God.
Yeah.
Like, I needed to wash that off.
Yeah,
So what do you do?
So sadly, I sing karaoke by myself. No, that's not sad. You know what? I'm going to own this. I sing karaoke by myself. So I practice so when my friends come that I sound awesome.
So you will be Beyonce and you have the wind fan. And
and my husband's the hype girl behind me because he can't sing. So he'll dance behind me. That's our Friday nights. I actually posted this on Instagram the other day. My self-care is actually learning about money because it is something that stresses me out. But I'll do it. On Saturday night, I was researching IRAs, wearing my Superwoman onesie, and eating a box of chocolates. That to me is fun. Not everybody's choice.
No judgments here.
Yes. But I do yoga on a regular basis. That has helped me a lot. And I say that because I notice that when I think about something, finances or otherwise, that stress me out, I would stop breathing. And so yoga has actually taught me a lot about how to control my own breath. And so that is a huge self-care item for me. And the other thing is just chocolate.
What's favorites?
I love dark chocolate specifically because I'm trying to do that whole like no dairy, vegan kind
Which
of
is a bunch
thing.
of BS, but whatever.
I know, right? It's the worst. But I've learned to put dark chocolate cocoa powder with chia seeds and coconut milk, and it's actually quite tasty.
Interesting.
And also cost effective.
I was going to say very cost effective. I do love a Ferrero Rocher from time to time. And
I'm allergic to nuts.
At least it sucks for you.
I know, right? I look at those things
Cadbury
all the
eggs?
time. Cadbury eggs are
Cadbury
good.
eggs is my jam, and then there's Jacques Torres chocolate, which is my absolute favorite. And that's like, it's like twice a year I can go there because I'm like, I can't spend $50 on chocolate. It's just wrong.
You could. You just can't eat anything else.
Yeah, that is my meal for the rest of the week.
Yeah, that's okay.
Judgments, no choices.
Sounds fine to me.
Bernadette, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for all the awesome tips on how to be smarter and less shameful about money. What I will do is put all this information in our show notes and help tweet it out to help you recruit that 100 women to essentially get rid of their $10,000 in debt over 2020, because I think it's just so impactful and important. And I think it's really important for us to understand there's no real shame around debt. Like, it happens, but what we can figure out ways, every little bit helps to sort of bring those numbers down. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. And that's our show.